Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland Brothers.
In this episode of Ask the Leyland Brothers, we have some interesting stories for you.
We've come to Forbes in New South Wales to answer one of many requests we've had to come to see the Lachlan Vintage Village here. This request from Andrew Sutton brings us here. He said, I made a visit to the Lachlan Vintage Village recently and was most impressed with the Clydesdale horses and the working farm. Could you please show this on your program? Well, we are going to take a look at working Clydesdales and also at the early days of the gold mining era depicted here in Forbes. Crossing the old-style suspension bridge to enter the vintage village is meant to be like crossing a time barrier. From here on, all things encountered on the visit come from the past, from the period between 1860 and 1900. The age of steam is very much in evidence. This steam train offers visitors the best way to take a look at the overall layout of the 200-acre development. Far side of the complex is the blacksmith shop and the end of the rail line. Here we can make our way back through the village on foot. Steam power was very much a part of the development of the West, and for a long time the heavy and powerful machines worked alongside the horses which they eventually replaced. The blacksmith was one of the most important members of the early town communities. He kept both horses and machines running. And the blacksmith here is equipped with steam-driven power tools. He hammers, stretches and shapes the steel using both traditional manpower and the steam-driven hammers which were commonplace in the late 19th century blacksmith shops. Shops in the town are not only authentic replicas of old Forbes traders, but offer a varied range of merchandise for sale to the visitors. Every building in the town is constructed using precisely the same materials and methods which were used during the period they depict. Thatched roofs were one of the many roofing methods used by the gold rush diggers to build homes in the hustle and bustle of the gold mining days in early Forbes. A horse-drawn wagon circles the township, offering regular transport about the village. Regular times through the day, demonstrations of hand shearing are given in the shearing shed at the farm on the complex. Here, the old razor-sharp hand shears are used to remove the fleece. famous bushranger Ben Hall is closely associated with Forbes district, for it was here that he terrorised the locals for 3 years, and this hut is an exact replica of the one he lived in. Inside, it's a primitive 2-room affair with nothing more than the basic necessities. The roof was made of stringy bark and required constant attention to keep it in good repair. The hut was burned by troopers when Hall was in jail, and it was this act which turned him to bushranging. Every building here is a copy of one which existed in Forbes, and this is the undertaker who buried Ben Hall when he was finally killed. The fact that Ben Hall was declared an outlaw meant that he could be shot on sight by anybody, and that in fact happened on the 5th of May 1865. Here in Forbes, outside the Vintage Village, in the graveyard, is Ben Hall's grave, his final resting place. Ben Hall was killed with no less than 36 troopers' bullets. He was riddled with lead while asleep. Gold was the inspiration which brought over 30,000 enthusiastic diggers to Forbes in the 1860s, and here, as part of the village, we can see what methods of gold extraction were used. Among them is this steam-powered ore crusher, which is also run every day for visitors to see just how things were done in those rip-roaring days. As mining became more difficult and the gold more elusive, labour-saving methods of shifting tons of ore became a necessity. Horsepower was put to use with this simple oversized winch known as a whim. As the horse walks in circles, so the ropes raise and lower buckets from the mine shafts. The whim is one of the early Australian inventions from the mining era, and it's also the first chance the visitor gets to have a look at the Clydesdales at work here at the Lachlan Vintage Village. In a moment we'll take a second look at the village, but in particular at the working farm where the Clydesdales work all year round. When the gold rush was over, many of the miners stayed on in the west of New South Wales and turned their hand to farming. Here at the Lachlan Vintage Village, the Norris family demonstrates the traditional farming methods which were in use 100 years ago by working a complete farming operation with Clydesdale horses. This 3-furrow plough, pulled by 5 Clydesdales, was a popular type in common use on small farms. The Norris family came to Australia as free settlers in 1849. James Norris took up land and worked it with Clydesdales in those pioneering days. Today, horses from his bloodline are used here at the village and are worked by his grandson, Wilf Norris.
Well, the setup you've got here with all your horses as a working farm, that must be pretty unique anywhere in Australia, isn't it?
Yes, it would be. Yeah.
And what makes you still work with horses now when most people prefer tractors?
Well, I'm very dedicated to my horses. I just like the draft horse and always did. I don't know, it's just, sometimes I think I should have been born 100 years ago. But
did you inherit the sort of love of horses from your father?
Yes.
And it's always been in the family then?
Yes. These horses are bred down from my father's team and some from my grandfather's team.
How efficient do you think the horses are on a working farm compared to tractors?
Oh, well, to be a horse farmer, you've got to be very energetic and you've got to work long hours.
It's a longer day then?
Yeah. That's where an average farmer today couldn't afford to pay men to drive a team of horses.
Wilf is the first to admit that tractors are faster and require less labour. But ever since he started working a team of horses at the age of 14, Wilf has loved his horses and wouldn't give them up now for anything. His 2 sons, Bill and Laurie, are also very keen on the Clydesdales, and it looks as though the Norris family and horses will continue for at least another generation. This header is one of the first Mackay headers to come into the Forbes district and is now used to head the wheat from the demonstration fields. When first introduced, this machine reduced the cost of harvesting wheat from 14 pence to 4 pence a bushel, and made the possibility of export for Australian wheat a reality for the first time. With a practised hand, Wilf sews up the bags ready to be carted back to the sheds. As a youth, he helped his father cultivate 300 acres of land and harvest the wheat every year. Now he passes on the simple skills of his trade to his sons. On a working farm, all the heavy labour is carried out with the help of horsepower, so when it comes time to load the wagon, Wilf utilises an ingenious device to lift the heavy sacks of wheat. In a short time, and with a minimum of manhandling, the wagon is loaded and moved off to the storage sheds. A certain amount of the wheat is used to make hay to feed the horses. Here, a reaper binder cuts the hay and ties it into tidy bundles so it can be stooked up. This ingenious device is a huge labour-saving machine which makes the job of hay making a fairly fast one. When the sun has done its job and the hay is made, the bundles are gathered up and carted back to the farm to be stacked into round haystacks. Pitching the hay and stacking in the correct manner is an old art which is not known by many of the young farmers these days. Wilf broke his leg this year and confessed this is the first year in 30 that he's been unable to carry out this work himself. He was lucky enough to find 60-year-old Sid Collets who had the skill and willingness to help out. When the hay is stacked correctly, it sheds water like a thatched roof. From the few acres Wilf keeps cultivated at the village, he's able to provide enough hay for his horses for the whole year. When the time comes to cut the hay on the chaff cutter, it's horses once more which provide the power. This is a 2-blade Clyde chaff cutter and is driven by a series of shafts and gears attached to the horseworks outside the shed. Wilf Norris says that he gets a great sense of satisfaction from using the horses for everything on the farm, and points out that a good horse should give 15 to 20 years of service without any trouble, and unlike tractors, will reproduce themselves in that time. There's no doubt that the Clydesdales at the working farm are certainly one of the star attractions at the Lachlan Vintage Village at Forbes.